Welcome back to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I am one of your hosts for the day, Matt Tardio. This is your other one, Robert Turkla. And today's episode is being brought to you by Huel. Well, operations inside of the Gaza Strip have wrapped up over inside of the Nasrat camp. Now, that's exactly where that airstrike took place on a mosque. The IDF said it was a weapons storage depot, so they went ahead and executed that target correctly. I've actually been reached out numerous times by soldiers inside the Israeli Defense Force that are pretty upset over the ceasefire that's taking place inside Lebanon. There's a lot of exchanges of gunfire that have gone down, and these soldiers have been writing me, and this one in particular told me it's okay to use him anonymously to tell you how they feel. And he says, and I quote, "I want to tell you on behalf of all of the reservists of the Israeli Defense Forces, we are frustrated with the agreement. We fought Hezbollah after a year of fighting in Gaza and dismantled it to pieces with the aims of creating a buffer zone between the organization of the homes of our citizens so that we don't see things like October of 2023. No one but Hezbollah lives in the villages near the border with Israel, and the return of the residents for approval means October again. The military won, the government surrendered, and all because of Biden's Democratic administration." He says, here's a video that I took myself. I found in just one house inside of, I'm going to redact the name of the village for him. One of the dozens that my battalion demolished because they were weapons hideouts. Check this crap out. Again, everything that is going to be in this video that is up on your screen right now, all of this stuff came out of just one building inside of a border town village. Now, interestingly enough, it wasn't just the ceasefire that they're saying is like kind of ticking them off. What they're saying is actually ticking them off is the fact that the rumor mill right now inside the Israeli Defense Force is that a couple things were used in order to get Netanyahu to go along with this. One is the ICC arrest warrants. They basically are saying that the rumor inside the Israeli Defense Force is that President Biden and Macron used the arrest warrants in order to basically strong-arm Netanyahu, saying that you're not going to be able to travel to any friendly place if you don't actually go along with the ceasefire. The other thing that they ended up doing was holding up a weapons shipment. Now, it's my understanding that that shipment has been released. And then last was this. Immediately following the ceasefire, Biden okayed a $600 million Israeli arms sale despite new Gaza ceasefire push. Rob, what do you think? Do you think they're full of it, or do you think that's actually probably how that went down?
Probably. I mean, you would assume that there's a lot of political pressure being applied here for this to actually happen. I don't think anybody inside the Israeli military was wanting it to happen. I don't see why they would want to stop pushing when they're legitimately destroying every single thing around them. So,
yeah, and nor is it good for the safety of the people. Now, we're also tracking a lot of stuff that's taking place over inside of Syria, right? Like there is some serious stuff going down over inside of Syria.
Syria is unfolding every second as we sit here. Like I'm seeing news, literally, like I just click and refresh the whole thing. The citizens are sitting in the middle of, inside of the center of Aleppo right now. Assad's regime is literally, I don't know, they're gone. Assad stayed inside of Russia, by the way. He left yesterday and hasn't returned back to Syria. And I don't know. Russia doesn't seem like, they only have 4,000 troops there, by the way. So I don't really know how much they can do or how much they're even willing to do if Assad's regime wasn't going to hold and it hasn't, which I'm sure there's a lot of videos we can overlay for you guys. There's a ton. There's also a lot of videos we can't.
The important thing for like people at home to understand is exactly what's going on. Why would Assad, who is the president of Syria, why the heck would he be flying over into Russia? What does Russia have to do with any of this? And then also, who is it that Assad is fighting against, and why the heck is Russia backing them? I think that's a pretty fair thing that we need to talk about real quick, right, Rob?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So when we dive over and we take a look at like Syria, it's actually kind of important to understand like geographically where it lies and why Russian troops are there. So one, we've been finding a lot of Russian weapons. And when I say we, I mean the Israeli Defense Force has been finding a lot of Russian weapons up along the front line in southern Lebanon. I mean, the vast majority, I would say, have been like Russian munition systems, particularly like the anti-tank guided missiles and several other things. But over inside Syria, the Russians have been in there since at least 2015, where I've got photos of Russian Spetsnaz that were working side by side with Hezbollah. And so the question is why is Russia working side by side with Hezbollah? What does that have to do to benefit them? And it's important to understand that both Hezbollah and the IRGC have been working together. And Hezbollah has been working on the side of the Assad regime. So in order to kind of track this in your brain on who the players are, you have the Assad regime, then you have the Russians, and then you have the IRGC from Iran, and they're all playing together against these people over here. So who are these people and why are they fighting them? Well, they're nothing more than what America calls terrorists. Some of them are ISIS defectors, some of them are ISIS fighters. There's lots of random little jihadist organizations that are running around over there. So because of that, the United States government is basically looking at this like the Taliban versus ISIS, and we're just going to stay the heck out of it. All we're worried about over there is making sure chemical weapons and things like that don't get it onto the street. So why is Russia in there, and what are they doing over inside of Syria? Well, they are doing their best to back up Iran. And what does Iran want to do with Syria? And that is where the question really starts to come into play. Well, Iran sits right over here on the other side of Iraq. And typically what Iran has to do when they want to sell their oil is they have to send it out to the ports down here inside of the Persian Gulf, and then they have to ship it up and around and either go through the Gulf of Aden and up through the Red Sea, which right now we have a lot of warships over there. So I'm not even sure. I haven't been trying to track the Russian oil tankers, whether or not they're still using it, even though the Houthis wouldn't be attacking them because they're on the side of Palestine. So that's what the Houthis inside of Yemen are doing. They're attacking ships of any nation that is being friendly towards Israel. That's why we have so many warships that are down there right now. Other than that, if they wanted to get their freaking oil around and all of that shut down, they have to go all the way around Africa, and that's going to cost them a lot of money. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a pipeline to get this oil out up over to the Med to make their life a little bit easier. And they want to be able to do that through Syria. Now, obviously, they can't do that with all of these poor relations going on. But if you hadn't noticed, the United States government said that we're going to end up withdrawing from Iraq in 2025. And that's pretty shocking. And you can actually see the government of Iraq being a little bit more and more extreme. We saw basically a consulate get put in place for Hamas over inside of Baghdad earlier this year. And interesting factoid. When ISIS first sparked off over in Syria and started pushing up over and was taking Mosul up here in the north, and this is when they were chucking all the gay people off of buildings, when they were taking all of the Kurds, killing all the dudes and marrying off all the women, and all of that stuff. When they were doing all of that, the United States basically remained neutral and we stayed out of it. We said, Iraqi government, you could take care of it, but they needed help. They did need help. And what ended up happening was the government over inside of Iran said, you know what, Iraq, you guys want help? We'll step in. We'll help you out. And because they did that, then the United States government came around and said, no, we're going to step in and we're going to go crush ISIS. And so we did. Now, why would the Iranian government want to be helping Iraq? Because in order to get that pipeline through Iraq, through Syria, and off into the Med, they need to get some approvals from the Iraqi government. Now, those approvals are a heck of a lot easier when you help save the country. So, big deal over there in the Middle East when we look at right now what's taking place. Now, that's important to understand that if Iran becomes partners and friends with Iran, and if Iran is successful in helping out Assad, they essentially have been able to destabilize or show influence over all of Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon through their proxy force Hezbollah and through the IRGC. What that's going to do is it's going to cause these jihadists to spread like freaking wildfire. That doesn't just benefit Russia, ladies and gentlemen. That doesn't just benefit Russia because the US is going to get tied up with more and more jihadists, but it also benefits Iran. So that is the reason that Russia is over there playing, and that is the reason that we have all of this fighting that's currently taking place over in the Middle East. And inside of Syria, I don't think we can show pretty much any of the videos that are coming out of Aleppo. Not a one.
No. You're not gonna be able to show anything that's coming out of there.
Like,
there's like some tanks. There's some artillery pieces you can see driving through the city. Maybe people leaving, but I've seen some of the most graphic videos since probably the beginning of the Ukrainian war, or mid like since I was covering that significantly. There's some crazy graphic stuff coming out.
Yeah,
it actually takes the cake over the Hamas stuff and everything else because this is unfiltered as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, and the crazy part is like, every single video I've seen has been extremely graphic, and they're all just, I mean, we're talking like people being beheaded. We're talking about just gunshot wounds, bodies stacked up, like just nasty, nasty stuff that we can't put on YouTube. So yeah, we'd love to show you some more footage of what's going on over there. We just can't, because it's all coming from the jihadists who are fighting against Assad, who is a genocidal maniac. So there's nothing good that's coming out of Syria right now, FYI. But we do have U.S. forces over there in a very limited footprint, likely for the reasons in which I told you.
To be truthful, it's like, it is ISIS. It's like terrorists hunting down a bad regime, which is basically just terrorist versus terrorist.
Right.
It was very ironic if you think about it, because you have the Russians backing Assad, who is now being attacked by terrorist organizations that don't really, then those terrorist organizations don't really like each other, but they're willing to band together. They go against a bigger terrorist organization. It's very like, I don't know. Let's grab some popcorn and just watch. America's probably enjoying it right now, especially the government.
It's like the enemy of my enemy is still my enemy, but we're going to be friends for just a little bit of time. I think that
Yeah.
the term that everybody like could kind of understand would be frenemies, maybe. I mean, it's up there. But Russia, you want to take over talking about some of the weird stuff that Russia came out with today?
Putin.
But tell you guys what, though, it has been a very, very long day for me. I kid you not. And I'm going to go ahead and crack this bad boy open. This is a Huel. This is a full-on freaking meal. And it's at the end of the day as I'm knocking this out. And it's a perfect time to have it. I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you are running late and you got no time for breakfast, you're starving. If you've ever been there before, like I have, dude, you get it. I get it. You're racing to meetings, practice, school pickups, whatever it is. But what if there was a delicious, nutritious meal, which could be ready in seconds? This podcast is sponsored by Huel, Huel, the world's #1 complete nutrition brand with over 400 million meals sold worldwide. Yes, you heard that right. 400 million. Huel is trusted by people like you looking to fuel their days with convenient, complete nutrition. Try it out for yourself with my exclusive offer to you. 15% plus a free gift for new customers with the code ROB, R-O-B, at Huel.com. Fuel your best with Huel today. Now, what do you get out of this meal, right? Like, it's very important because I am going to have me a meal here. Look, what are you getting out of it? Well, number one, you're getting 35 grams of protein. And I think if you're into meal shakes and or like things of that nature, there's something that we're always concerned about, which is added sugar. And what blew my mind after I actually tasted this is that there is only, and I say only, 6 grams total of sugar. Out of that, 4 grams are added. You think that's a lot of sugar for a meal? You're out of your dang mind. Like, that is one of the hardest things to get under control, especially to have it taste as good as it does. And Huel done figured it out. That is a buttload of protein packed into one little bottled meal. And you gotta love it because it's good for you. Now, for some reason, you guys just don't believe me. I've got the exclusive offer for you. I want you to take the leap into the community of the hooligans with this exclusive offer, only for new customers. 15% plus a free gift with the code ROB at Huel.com. That's 15% plus a free gift for new customers with the code ROB at Huel.com. Unlock a healthier, easier way to eat with Huel. Nutritionally complete meals in minutes so that you can focus on what really matters.
Is not happy again. He isn't threatening nukes per se. So he's threatening to hit Ukraine, Kiev, that is, their strategic areas, which I'm going to use that very lightly, with weapons that are as large as nukes. In that, there's one of the things that he was saying in his speech that he had come out with is that the weapon itself burns at 4,000 degrees or something. And then he of course follows it up with like, doesn't the sun burn at 5,500 to 6,000 degrees? And then you're like, okay, well, are you trying to say that you're going to bring something that's almost equivalent to the heat of the sun to Kiev? And then you're like, how is that strategic? You're talking like, this is a city with, I don't even know how many people. What is the population of Kiev? Do you know? I actually could
not
find
off
really
the top
quick.
of my head right now.
I got it.
Day,
Don't you
no
worry.
idea.
I got it. Don't you worry. Almost 3 million people. Actually, just over 3 million people. So he's going to hit over 3 million people somehow strategically with a bomb that is his size and as powerful as a nuke. But it's not going to be a nuke. You know why? Because it's not going to have the nuclear, the fallout, as you would say. That's probably his saving grace here. And he knows if he uses a nuke, then it kind of changes things a little bit. You know?
Yeah. No, it absolutely will.
They also had their largest day yesterday, bloodshed wise, just so everybody is aware there. So it hasn't really slowed down inside of Ukraine. I say Ukraine, I think this is most of the death is actually happening between the southern portion of the country, because the Russians are making a little bit of advancements and they're very small. But I think most of the fighting and most of the casualties are taking place actually in Russia itself, Russia proper.
Mm-hmm. Over inside of Kursk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the other big thing that Putin came out and he said today in like that press conference was that he was going to be basically field testing the Oreshnik ballistic missile, the same one that he shot last week, over in active combat inside of Ukraine. And so a lot of people are unfamiliar with this one. I was unfamiliar with it myself. And I think it's kind of important maybe that we go over that particular ballistic missile and just describe how it works and what it is. So I'm going to throw this up here on the screen. I think it got done very, very well. Reuters actually ended up putting this together and breaks down how the sucker works. When we first saw it, we all thought that for some reason there was multiple ballistic missiles that ended up impacting initially. Turns out it wasn't multiple ballistic missiles. It was this. Now, what ends up happening is you have the ballistic missile that ends up launching, pretty much goes up outside of the Earth's atmosphere. And kind of goes like not quite, into low Earth orbit, but below that. And then it ditches all of its freaking canisters, all of its fuel tanks and everything. And what's left is this little guy, this thing right here. And this article does a very good job at painting how it does. And so it's right here, the MIRV. This MIRV itself is what contains the warheads. Now, interesting enough, this MIRV has the ability to like basically program each of these 6 warheads for their own independent targets, which is wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which is absolutely nuts. So you can have 6 warheads now re-entering into the Earth, all with their own separate targets. And Putin threatening Kyiv with something like this is absolutely insane. Absolutely nuts. Is it nuclear capable? Sure. Is it something you want fired inside of an urban environment such as Kyiv? Absolutely not. I'm sure there is legitimate military targets inside of Kyiv. I have no doubt. And there's lots of different things that qualify as legitimate military targets. But the worry is how accurate is this sucker? I don't know. He's talking about field testing it in battlefield conditions. So if you're field testing this weapon system inside of a populated urban area, that's not good. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, one of the only things, okay. The reason why I could see him wanting or needing to do something like this, and I know I haven't brought it up publicly or other than talking with you about it, is he doesn't have a very large window. He's got a window that's going to last another 45-ish days. I don't even know when does Trump come into office? I don't know. End of January, right?
January 20th of 25.
20th?
January 20th.
Okay, so he's got about 45 days. He's got a month and a half to really do something like this, because what is Biden going to do with the last 45 days in office? I mean, I guess that I could also say he's got 45 days in office. Maybe he doesn't care enough, and maybe he does something stupid. Like, all right, here you go, Trump. Now it's on you. I don't know if that'd be the case, but.
Right. Well, I think, the other issue that's going to come into play is we're going to put it up right here, is that it got reported another S-400 actually got taken out. This time over inside of Crimea, like over here in the center. It had been geolocated, geoconfirmed, video footage of that sucker blowing up. I don't know what I did with it. I kind of got away with it. But either way, the important thing to remember is if we look at this and we start measuring distance, that sucker has a operational range up to and including 400 kilometers, right? So that sucker can reach all the way up here. Now, multiple S-400 systems have been taken out. So you're looking right about there for like the range. So it can reach pretty much all the way up over to Donetsk. And if you picture that sucker, it's going to go 360 degrees all the way around. Well, there was two other ones that ended up getting taken out over this last week. One up over inside of the Kursk region, up over in Russia. Okay. And that was done with an ATACMS system. Obviously, that is U.S. provided munitions taking place over there. And Putin's already been pissed off about U.S. munitions being used inside Russia. But what it really appears to be, this would be the third one in a week that has been taken out and or severely damaged. What it would appear to be is that they're going directly after Russia's air defense assets. So with Putin making all of these random freaking threats towards Kyiv and towards, Ukraine in general, it kind of makes you wonder, okay, Ukraine's targeting Russia's air defense assets. Are we going to see a major strike by either the F-16s or freaking whatever over inside of Russia? And I think that's going to be Putin's big fear. Or are they just going to ramp up attacks? What do you think?
Ramp up attacks.
Ramp up attacks.
I don't know. I don't know, man. It is also wintertime over there. So I don't see like some massive crazy thing happening when it comes to ramping up of attacks. I could be incorrect though.
Well,
and that's we all know what's happened the last few winters. It's pretty much gone, I don't want to say stagnant because people are dying. They just had the bloodiest day ever.
Yeah.
It's just
yeah.
I think the war is being fought in a different. I do know. I mean, there's so many different things that are happening when it comes to this weird time that they're in, because I know Ukraine's short as well on ammunition, definitely short on men, like for sure, but they still have the will to fight, which I know the video you're about to pull up. And if you guys saw the live this morning, this guy is absolutely an absolute beast. And I want to talk about this guy before you throw him up, by the way. I still have his stuff pulled up on my screen.
Okay.
Because he's insane.
Well, yeah, before we throw the video up, let's say who he is. He's going to be the new special envoy for Ukraine and Russia underneath the Trump administration. Would you like to do the honors of reading off all of his master's qualifications?
So this gentleman's name is Keith Kellogg. He's a lieutenant general who is retired. He was born in 1944. His career spanned from 1967 to 2003. Now, this gentleman served in Vietnam. He was in the 101st Airborne Division, and he was also a Special Forces advisor to the Cambodian Army. His valor earned him the Silver Star, Bronze Star with V device, and Air Medal with V device. He's probably one of the first Army guys I've ever heard getting an Air Medal V device, which means he had to do something heroic while inside of more than likely going to be a helicopter. He actually I know what he did to a certain extent. He landed in a helicopter and then took out 5 bunkers while transporting wounded men into the helicopter. So the dude is an absolute beast, like a legitimate beast. And he was in for I think it's about 36 years or so. He got out in 2003. But this dude's, he also was in command, by the way, in 1996 of the 82nd Airborne Division. So this guy is stout. This guy makes me look like a little pansy.
Right. You know what the kids call that? The kids call it certified. Like the dude's certified.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's certified. He's certified. I would feel like a very small human being around this person.
Yeah. So. Same. Those guys. Right. All right. So let's go to the video and let's listen to him. So he is going to be the special envoy for Ukraine. Now, it's important to understand that this interview was done around the time of the 1-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, but I want you to listen to how he's talking about it. All right. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. Trump is very good at picking the correct people for the correct job. And this guy has opposing views of what Trump does. So Ukraine, in order to get victory, is going to need a buttload of support from the United States and like the international coalition that is supporting them. Now, listen to this man and what he says.
Bottom line, the Ukrainians want to fight. They don't want U.S. troops. They don't want NATO troops. All they want is equipment, and they're going to fight this to the end. It's very clear to them that this is a very aggressive Russia move. It's targeted on civilians. It's targeted on infrastructure. We went out pretty far to the northeast. And we saw some absolute incredible destruction out there by the Russians. And it was targeted on infrastructure. It was targeted on hospitals. It was targeted on schools. In fact, the mayor of Kyiv told us later that this is genocide. And I think when we look at what's going to happen over there, I believe it's very important we get them the equipment to fight, because I think now we're right on the cusp. And I think it's going to come out probably in just a couple of months when we get into the spring, into the summer, and then into the fall. This is going to be a fight to the end. The Ukrainians are not going to negotiate. They have no intention to negotiate. They want to eject Russian forces from Ukraine. I don't care if it's a Donbass. I don't care if it's Crimea. And they're committed to it. And I talk to a lot of government officials, military officials, civilians that are out there. It's a very committed nation. If anybody doubts their loyalty to Ukraine, they're badly mistaken. And again, as I said, I think it's a fight to the finish.
So it's funny to me, Rob. It's funny to me that people will still, after I play that clip for him or after I show them how he feels and how he understands the situation, it's funny to me that people will still sit back and go, oh, no. Trump's not going to properly support Ukraine. There's not going to be a good outcome to this. He just wants Ukraine to roll over. And I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to end up getting into office. He's going to get his intel dump. And then from guys like Kellogg. And then it's just going to freaking, like, you're going to see Ukraine get what they need in order to fight. And that's going to force Russia out. That's my opinion.
I think we kind of said something like that at the very beginning, though. It's pretty much what you said.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks ago. You know what? Someone's going to come in. He's going to listen to his advisors, and things are going to change. So.
Yeah. No, 100%. I thoroughly believe that's exactly what's going to happen. So you're going to Kellogg's going to come in. All of his other advisors are going to come in who actually know what they're talking about on Ukraine, who know that Ukraine has basically been like fed by a freaking like little eyedropper, like it was a baby, just to kind of keep it moving and alive. And then we're going to end up taking it and just ramming freaking food into its mouth until it turns into this big, fat, strong beast and is able to go overpower Russia. And in which case Russia, who's already sourcing troops from North Korea to help it fight in Kursk, who are getting slaughtered, by the way, right? They are going to be forced to give up. And that's going to make Putin look very, very bad. And he's got some actual statements on that as well.
Well, you've been right along the way here. In general, the only thing is if they're adamant about not giving up an inch of land or letting the Russians have an inch of land, Vladimir Putin is equally adamant about unleashing holy hell on civilians. He's not going anywhere. What's the end game here?
Yeah, here's what I think the end game is, Neil. I think evicting the Russians from Ukraine, I think they've got the capacity to do it, the Ukrainians, with their fighting spirit, as long as we give them the kit. Because I think they've got the Russians at least at a stalemate and possibly on their heels. And I think why this is important, geostrategically, if the Ukrainians can defeat Russia in the field and eject them from the Donbass or Crimea, Putin falls. And it changes Europe for a generation to come. People need to realize Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe. I mean, I saw that just driving it. And they're very committed to freedom and democracy. They recognize they've got some issues with things that have happened in the past, with illegal activities going on. They understand that. They're trying to correct it. But boy, I'll tell you, their military is a fighting military. I saw it firsthand. We got pretty darn close to the area where what they call the zero line is, which is we used to call the line of contact. And there's no doubt in my mind that they're committed to this fight and fight to the end. So one of these two sides is going to win. I don't think there's going to be anything to negotiate. I don't think there's going to be any negotiations, despite what people want to talk about. Zelensky's not going to do it.
And that is what you and I have been saying this entire time, that Zelensky is not going to want to negotiate, and neither is Putin. And I think when people start to understand that, they're going to understand the gravity of the war, the scale of the war. And also, with Putin losing this, he is going to lose all of his influence as far as Europe is concerned. And I think BRICS is going to lose a buttload of credibility as well. And that's a huge deal.
I think Putin's already worried about that just a little bit, especially with what's going on inside of Syria. Syria's going to change a few things, I think.
Yep. I would tend to agree with you. Well, that's all I got, Rob. You got anything else?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. We want to thank Huel for sponsoring today's episode. And like always, Rob, you're beautiful. I don't care what anybody tells you. You're pretty.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.